Okay, I'm going to set up for our next speaker, who is a great friend of the work we do. Frederique Apffel-Marglin is an accomplished Indian dancer and an anthropologist, and for the last 20 years she's been working in the Peruvian Amazon, and she reintroduced biochar and fertility to the communities where she is working. And if I got it wrong, you'll correct me. But I think I got it right. And she has given a couple of meetups, and we'll probably have her doing a meetup again, so stay tuned.
Do you mind if I just say something while you're setting up?
Go.
Okay, thanks.
Quickly.
I think the Citizens Climate Lobby combines both of those things because it empowers individual people, and then they go and they talk to their legislators. So like we now have, we created a bipartisan climate caucus, and now we have 62 as a bipartisan group in Congress that's actually been standing in the way of legislation that against climate. So I think that resolves, it's like it connects the two things.
Sideways.
No, well, either one.
Either one.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Paula, Jim. This is... Sorry?
Just a little closer.
Oh.
You don't have to lean into it.
The mic. Okay, sorry. Yes. So let me get to the meat of my presentation. I retired early from an academic career because I felt that I could not join together or integrate activism, heart and body, and especially spirituality and the mind very well in an elite institution in New England. So I retired early about 8 years ago, and I had been collaborating with a Peruvian NGO for many years. And anyway, things happened, and I finally was told by the spirits, and I will talk more about the spirits and what that's all about. In fact, I'll do a workshop about that tomorrow if you're interested. That I should do my own thing, and that's what I've been doing. I do that in the place where I have been working for many years, the Upper Amazon in Peru. And the leadership, the indigenous group are called the Quechua Lamistas. They speak a variant of Quechua, and they asked me to give them an alternative to their form of farming, which is slash and burn. And the reason they asked me for an alternative is that the forest cover is disappearing, and to do slash and burn, you need forest. So I won't go into that. I assume you know, you do a clearing, you cut the trees, you burn them, and that gives a little bit of nutrient to the Amazonian soil, which the majority of this soil are oxysoils. They are very poor in nutrient. So I had been looking into that before, and I had discovered the most fertile, most sustainable soil in the world happened to be a pre-Columbian Amazonian soil, so soil made, an anthropogenic soil made by the pre-Columbian Amerindians of the Amazon. It's known in Peru as Terra Preta do Indio, Black Earth of the Indians. It's also known as Amazonian Dark Earth. So that was one option for replacing slash and burn, because all the small farmers, all the indigenous farmers, and the poor mestizo farmers sustain themselves through slash and burn. And for me, I knew, and they told me so, that they want to grow their own food. They want food security, food sovereignty especially, because their culture, their continuation as who they are depends on that. Otherwise, they are at the mercy of the market. This is what I've been engaged in doing, and I developed a way of regenerating this pre-Columbian soil. What happened? Why was it forgotten, totally forgotten, by the Quichualamistas in that region? It was forgotten because with the Spanish invasion that happened in this region around 1538 to 1542, between 96 and 99% of the people died. And to make Terra Preta, that gave rise to great civilization, high population in the Amazon, you needed a complex social organization to make that happen. And that collapsed with just about everybody dying. And what happened then, they needed to grow food, the remnant of the people, quickly. And they could do that with the steel axes brought by the Spaniard. And that introduced slash and burn. That was not their method. Okay? So, but it's been all completely forgotten. And what's happened since, so for 500 years just about, they've been doing slash and burn. And they've been pushed to the margin of the least fertile lands, most difficult to cultivate, very slopey, by the dominant part of the society, the most powerful, the more wealthy. And so they are in really a difficult situation. So that's why I decided to do what I'm doing, and together with them, and discovered, went deeply into the literature of which there's plenty on Amazonian dark earth. However, this literature that I read is overwhelmingly quantitative, materialistic, and leaves out a whole area of this kind of agriculture, and there were remnants, and that was the most exciting thing, among the contemporary Quichuas in San Martin, in Lamas. The area is here, around here. So it's the eastern foothills of the Andes, looking towards Amazonia. So my book, which just came out with two other authors, called Sacred Soil. Unfortunately, it's not available for sale. That didn't happen. But there is a display copy on the table, and there are postcards. And I tell the tale, and it's both a story and also I get into deeper stuff there. And let's see if we can... So this is I created my own center called Sachamama Center for Biocultural Regeneration. Sachamama is the spirit of the rainforest, and one of the very wonderful group in Ecuador, Sarayaku, that successfully resisted mining in their region. One of their leaders, Patricia Gualinga, coined the term Kausak Sacha, sacred or living forest. Biocultural is a term that indicates that you reject the opposition between nature and culture. It's one thing. And regeneration rejects the linearity of a great deal of modern thinking. It's a spiral kind of thinking. So, here in this slide, you see that huge smoke. That comes from a slash and burn. So slash and burn today is the third cause of climate warming in the whole Amazon basin. All the small farmers do that. So it's really important to try to shift this. So both for climate reasons, for ecological reasons, as well as for cultural sovereignty and food sovereignty, it's very necessary to find a successful alternative. Now, the reason I have written this book and do the work that I do is also because once you excise, as it were, what you can refer to as the spiritual or the cosmovision, the worldview of these practices, these pre-Columbian practices, and some of them are contemporary practices, you lose something profound. And you lose something that you can learn. So typically, this soil is now biochar, the word is out everywhere, terra preta, the word is out, you can find it, lots of it on the internet, but it's all materialist and quantitative. You won't find the worldview part, the cosmovision part. So I'm going to emphasize that. So here is it is something from the website of Professor Johann Lehmann at Cornell University, one of the major scientists who has worked on this soil. And his work is indispensable. I'm not putting down this kind of work at all. It's indispensable for me and anybody interested in these things. However, it is partial, and it is relentlessly materialistic. However, it's very, very useful. So. This is some of the things that we do, and what we're doing here is something that we need to do, namely, when you do slash and burn, your food garden lasts only a few years, between 1 and 4 years, and then the nutrient runs out, and you have to do that somewhere else in the forest. And since for this to be sustainable, and the forests regenerate in a healthy way, you need 50 hectares per family. Now they have between 3 and 10 hectares per family. The result, a runaway growth of degraded land, where the forest doesn't regenerate and you can't plant anything. And I'll show you one of those. There it is. This is, I also work with the provincial school board. This is a high school in town, and this is what the soil looks like. It's like brick. So what we did, the first thing we did, and that's what the previous slide was about, is to terrace the land. Most of the land is on slope because the valley floor, the good fertile valley floors, are with the rich farmers and the cash crops, okay? So that's the first thing you have to do. And then we, together with the people we collaborate with, we regenerate this pre-Columbian soil, and this is what happens afterwards. The same, look at that. It becomes, in one season, you have bumper crops. So it's really something that works. Now, and this is the backyard biochar oven we have designed, and this is in that same high school, and they've taken out the biochar from the retort, and they're dousing it so that it will not become ashes and will become biochar, and they mix it with the rest. Now let me get to the next slide. This is a slide from the internet about an archaeological slice which shows this anthropogenic black soil, and it's very deep, so it's very ancient. The oldest strata are 8,500 years old, and they're still fertile today. So this people, this Amerindian, unique among the peoples of the earth, have left their soils more fertile than when they encountered them. This is not true of the Fertile Crescent, where agriculture was born in the old world. It is now a desert, and so forth and so on. So this is really a very remarkable kind of soil. You can see, the reason I have this slide is that you can see it is absolutely full of ceramic shards. Now, the archaeologists say, oh, these they come from trash heaps, middens, or some burials. But actually, and some also jars of human manure. They didn't have domestic animals, so they made use of human manure in ceramic jars. But that's around dwellings. the ceramic shards is found everywhere there is terra preta. And the beauty is that today, you still, some of my collaborators have told me that they make offerings of broken ceramic to the spirit of the food field at the time of planting, or just before planting. So this is something that's not noticed and not taken into account, and I consider it extraordinarily important. So here they are doing, in one of the communities, native communities we work with, they are doing offerings. Actually, the slides should be reversed. Here they're holding into the ceramics, and the women are the ceramicists, the ancient corn beer, chicha, which are offered to guests and deities or spirits. And the smoke is from a ritual cigarette, because tobacco is sacred throughout the Americas and is indigenous from the Americas. And so they smudge with this mapacho, this ritual cigarette, the chicha and the seeds, and then they sprinkle the chicha on the earth, and then they shatter the ceramics and bury it in the garden. So basically, that's what we're talking about. Now, what I want to talk about, emphasize in this, is that, first of all, I want to say to you possibly something that everybody knows in this room, but just in case, let me say, we have learned from the marvelous book, article, which is now very famous, of William Cronon, that our wilderness preserves are nothing like that. They are an invention, okay? They were created by the governments, the US government, right after the Indian Wars, when all the Native Americans were put on reservation. And they were taken out of those places, and those places were designated as wilderness. So just, if I have time, maybe I don't have time to read his quote, but what he makes us aware is that the Native Americans lived with those places and transformed those places. And this transformation is a transformation that I learned from my indigenous collaborators is a co-creation. We've heard that from several presentations this morning, that nature, and in this case the forest, and everything in the forest, animals, plants, mycelium, trees, of course, have intelligence. And the indigenous people tune into this in several ways. And one of the ways they tune in with this intelligence is through their plant brews that are psychotropics. The most widespread in this region is called ayahuasca, the vine of the souls of the dead. And speaking of cognitive, the previous speaker, what it does precisely is that it completely reboots, it kind of decomposes your mind. And there's a wonderful book by a Yanomami shaman in which he describes this, first person. You die. And when you do it, you feel like you're dying, because your sense of self, your sense of all your senses, your mind, and it's frightening. There's no question about it. And he talks about it as dying. And I experienced it because I've been doing this for 20 years. It is like dying. But what does it do? It reboots. And I just want to emphasize that ayahuasca is a non-addictive, not only it is non-addictive plant brew, but it is extremely successfully used to treat drug addiction, alcoholism, mental issues. Near my center, there is in Tarapoto, a half-an-hour drive, there's a center known as Takiwasi Center, created by a French MD married to a Peruvian MD, and together he apprenticed to several shamans, local shamans, for many, many years. And then the spirits told him, now you have to give back. And he says, how should I do that? You should treat drug addiction, because this was at the time that there was a cocaine kind of market in the region. And he said, oh boy, I hate drug addiction. It's a bitch. I'm no interest. And he procrastinated for several years. And they came back, they said, now you do it. And so he's been doing it now for 23 years with tremendous success. Like 65% after 2 years are clean. No withdrawal symptom. It requires a 9 months being interned, but the gates are open. So if you can't hack it, you can leave. So what I want to emphasize, and I'm in the middle of reading this Yanomami shaman autobiography, and I'm realized most of it is about the spirits. And given my experience, not only in this rebooting and why it has such tremendously healing effect for mental and other problems, but also the indigenous people do it when they go, before they go in the forest. And they have their dogs take it as well. And so the spirits, so-called, what I want to emphasize, it is not a belief system. So totally different from our Abrahamic religious traditions, right? Our monotheistic tradition. It has nothing to do with belief and everything to do with experience. So you experience, and the very interesting thing is that you don't have to be an indigenous person to see the spirits. And furthermore, the foreigners who are seeking this for very good reasons, they need it, we all need it, often have the same visions as the indigenous people. And more than that, several people have the same visions and interact visionarily during the ceremony with each other. So this is not, you don't have to believe, you don't have to become an indigenous, you don't have to have their culture and believe in their systems. This is something I have concluded that the spirits are how the intelligence that we've heard about, the intelligence of the forest, the intelligence of nature comes to you. Peru, thank God, has never made ayahuasca illegal. Apparently, I heard that a minister of health tried to make it illegal, made it illegal, and there was such a revolution that after 2 weeks he rescinded it, and it continues to be legal. And now the research, the scientific research on the benefits of ayahuasca and other such psychotropic has picked up again, and it is well known that it is one of the most effective way of treating addictions of all kinds, PTSD, and other problems. So I'm very glad of that. Now, I don't know how much time left do I have. Couple minutes, okay. So what I'd like to say then, I will read a quote of when I was in graduate school in the 70s, the most well-known archaeologist and theorist of the Amazon basin. Even though I was not a South Americanist, I did my early work in India, but that's another story. But anyway, I read that book because it was on the list. And her name is Betty Meggers, and she was a part of BBC, the first BBC documentary on the discovery of Terra Preta. And before she died, I think the BBC documentary is 2002. And she's shown all the evidence gathered by archaeologists of the existence of large, very populous, complex civilizations all over the Amazon basin, made possible by this extremely productive, extremely fertile soil. And this is what she says. Every effort that we've made to develop sustainable permanent agriculture in the Amazon basin, with millions of dollars that have been spent on efforts to do that, and they've all failed. And so if you're going to believe that the indigenous population had a secret that we have not been able to discover with all our technology, that's fine, but what is it? So she never believed it. So the pre-Columbian Amerindian were able to do something that all of America technology and dollars has not been able to do. And I claim in this book that what that something is, I call it co-creation. They have known, partly through shamanism and their plant brews and in some other ways, to work with and together, the interdependence, so human and non-human know how to be part of each other, understand each other, work with each other, and produced the most sustainable, fertile soil in the world that draws down powerfully CO2 and greenhouse gases. And if all agriculture was like that, we would not have a climate crisis. So it's an amazing achievement. And I just want us all together to consider that what we have absolutely made illegal and considered as a devastating drug, first of all, it's false, it's non-addictive, and can help us, and does help, and can reboot our cognitive brain, dissolve it and then reboot it, and is extremely powerful. So I would like to present a workshop tomorrow, because we have a new workshop where we deal with personal healing and what I call integral ecology, where the human and the non-human and the other than human, the spirits, all come together. So I will offer that. There are flyers about this workshop that we are starting in January, and then we'll have more in the summer and so forth. So I hope to be able to see some of you. Thank you very much for your attention.